So let's start by looking at the national statistics on income and life expectancy that we get from this procedure. So this chart shows you expected age at death versus household income percentile for men at age 40. So on the x-axis here is household income percentile. Just to give you a sense of dollar magnitudes, we're showing what these percentiles correspond to in the income distribution at age 40. So the mean income in the 20th percentile is $25,000, 47 at the 40th percentile, 74 at the 60th percentile, 115, and then in the top 1%, mean income is $2 million. So, this just reflects the fact that the income distribution in the US is very skewed. So going from the 20th to the 40th percentile is a much smaller jump in absolute terms than going from the 80th to the top 1%. So what you see here is that there's a very strong relationship between income and life expectancy. There's this monotonic increase in life expectancy with respect to income. And it looks almost linear in ranks. So it's linear as a function of percentile rank, which obviously means it's concave as a function of absolute income in terms of, in light of what I just said a minute ago. So the magnitudes here, there's quite a large gap. So if you take men in the top 1%, their life expectancy is 87.3 years in the US at age 40, compared with 72.7 years for men in the bottom 1%, so nearly a 15-year gap between the top and bottom 1%. Now, to give you a sense of magnitudes, how do we think about that 15-year gap? How large is it? I think one set of useful benchmarks is to compare these numbers to life expectancy across countries around the world. So this chart shows you mean life expectancies for all countries in the world from the World Health Organization. And we're showing with the red lines where life expectancies for men in the US at different percentiles fall in this distribution. And you can see that men in the bottom 1% have life expectancy that's between the average man in Pakistan and Sudan. Men in the top 1% have higher life expectancy than the average man in any country in the world. So there's an incredibly vast gap in the experiences of men in the United States depending upon their income. Now, if we look at women, you see a similar pattern of a strong association between income and life expectancy, but there's a smaller gap between the top and the bottom. It's about a 10-year gap instead of a 15-year gap. So another way to look at that is that the gender gap in life expectancy, we all know that women live longer than men, that it turns out to be quite differential across income levels. So the gender gap is much larger at the bottom of the income distribution, where women outlive men by about 6 years, than at the top of the income distribution, where the gap is only 1.6 years. And that, I think, is an interesting pattern that is consistent with a lot of recent work by David Otter and others, suggesting that women are more resilient in the face of hardship and poverty than men in a variety of different circumstances.